The term match move is derived from the process of matching graphic elements into a scene, matching the moves of a camera or of live action footage. In this video, we've already performed a 3D camera track, so all we have left to do is insert our graphics into the scene. So we have some kind of reference. Let's go ahead and double-click on the 01 match move reference video, and you can press the spacebar to play it back. I've already loaded up the frames, so it's going to play back rather smoothly. And here you can see I've inserted a title into this video. And if I press the spacebar to stop playback, you can notice that I've even inserted a shadow in here to add more of a sense of realism. So let's go ahead and double click on the 02 Match Move comp. In here, you'll see my video layer. And if you're not seeing the camera tracker, press E on your keyboard until you can see it, and then click on the 3D camera tracker. That'll bring up your points. So if I hover over these track points here, I want to hover until I get to a general area where I'd like to insert my text. So here, I'll just click once to select these points. And if it just randomly selects something different, you can click anywhere else to deselect. And here, I'll go back to, say, this triangle. I'll click once. To further refine the placement of the target, you can hold down Shift and click on Other Targets. And that'll just continue to lock down the placement of this target. So this looks pretty good to me. I think the angle matches the floor pretty well. So what I'm going to do is set the origin of my project. So anytime I actually place a graphic, the 000 coordinate will now be in this place. This kind of matches the virtual world with the world from our video clip. So let's right-click and choose Set Ground Plane and Origin. Okay, now I'll go back up there one more time, and I'll right-click and choose Create Shadow Catcher, Camera, and Light. Now, even though it doesn't look like much has happened, if we look in the timeline, you see it's created a camera and a shadow catcher and a light layer. Now, I'm not seeing any transparency on this shadow catcher, so let's select Layer 2, and I'll press AA to open up the material options. The reason I'm not seeing any of the color data for the layer solid is the fact that it's set to accept shadows only. So if I toggle that, you can see the visibility of that layer. So here I'll just say only, and this will only show me shadows. So I can go ahead and close that down and click on the 3D camera tracker one more time. Now let's hover back over the place where we'd kind of like to insert our text, which is roughly the same place. And then all you have to do is just right-click and choose Create Text. Now this text is going to be placed in 3D space, but your text may be slightly different than mine. I've activated a font with Typekit, so you want to make sure to enable Typekit on your system to make sure our fonts match. To place this text exactly at the origin, I'm going to go ahead and click on the word text, and I'm going to go to the parent column and hold down Shift, and I'll click on the pick whip and point it at the shadow catcher. When I let go, now the text is moved right to that point. And rather than having to retype the title, I'm going to open the 01 Match Move reference comp. Let's double-click on the T for Layer 4 to select all the text, and then just copy the text using traditional Command-C, Command-V key commands. So here, I'll double-click on Layer 1 and press Command-V to paste. So now my text is perfectly placed flat on the floor. Let's grab our selection tool here and see if we can fix the orientation. Let's press R to open the rotation, and everything's set to 0, but that's because it is the child of a parent object. So let's go back to the parent column here, and I'll click on the pull down and choose None. Now I can see the actual properties of this layer in the 3D world. So let's click on the X parameter and change it to 0. And I need to further reposition this, but let's change the color of the text so I can see it better. With Layer 1 selected, let's go over to our character panel. I'll click on the color, and let's choose kind of a nice light blue color, kind of light blue purple. That's fine. Now notice the text is only throwing shadows off the top word. So let's press A to open up the anchor point. Since the position's already set, I just want to move the object in relation to the position. So that's what we'll do with the anchor point. Click on the Y parameter and scrub left and right, and you'll see how once we actually get up to a certain point, it will be above the ground plane. So if we need to move it back and forth in the scene, you can scrub on the Z parameter. And notice, even if I move it from its original placement, when I scrub the timeline here, you can see it's going to track right along in our scene. So here, let's move our current time indicator to about 2 seconds. I want to use this as a visual reference to line up my shadows, because you notice the shadow here in the original shot is going this way. So let's select our light, press P to open up the position, and hold down Shift and click on the X parameter and drag, not to the right, but to the left. Holding Shift makes it move more quickly. So let's try and line up the angles of these shadows. And then, still holding Shift, let's scrub on the Y parameter back to the left to bring the shadow down a little bit. And let's add a little more realism. With the light selected, I want to collapse that layer and open it up and open my light options. Down here at the bottom of my light options, I want to decrease the shadow darkness here a little bit, but I want it to blur as it's moving away from the object. So let's increase the shadow diffusion. And you notice the further the shadow gets away from the object, the more blurry it's going to be. Now you can see our shadow's angle and roughly the darkness is lined up in a very similar fashion to what we've already seen in our scene. So as you can see, when it comes to actually inserting graphics into your After Effects compositions, as long as you've created your initial camera track, it's just a matter of selecting the points and choosing right click.